Hey guys, what's going on? It's Buns, and welcome to the Legion class overview for Demon Hunter. Now, Demon Hunter only has two specs. You have the tank spec, which is Vengeance, and you have Havoc, which is your DPS spec. I don't know why there's only two specs, it's just the way it is. Maybe because Druid has four, I don't fucking know. It's just the way fucking Blizzard made it. So, it's going to be a shorter video than the other ones, and there's not a whole lot to go into for the two specs. But, I'll give you guys a basic overview for what you have to offer and what each spec kind of does. So, looking at the first spec here, I'm playing my Vengeance Demon Hunter, which is the tank spec, and as Demon Hunter, you get a similar energy pool like Rage. So basically, you use your abilities, it's just called Pain. It might as well be called Rage, it's like the same thing. You do damage, and you generate, your abilities generate Pain. So, Shear is your main ability, and you use that pretty much all the time. It's a spammable ability, it generates 10 Pain, hits your target for a decent amount of damage, and also splits off a lesser soul fragment from your target that heals you for about 50k. Now, part of the whole build with Demon Hunters is you get a passive called Shattered Souls, and when you hit targets, you have a chance to get soul fragments dropped off them, or lesser soul fragments, which heal you, or you can also use them with some of your other abilities to combo and do damage onto your target. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's part of the whole build behind Vengeance Demon Hunters. So, another way that you can spend some of your pain is through Soul Cleave. Now, Soul Cleave does 150k damage about to enemies in front of you, AoE, and it can also heal you for about 250k. And this is based off of how much pain you spend, and it can be anywhere from 30 to 60. So 60 is going to be the high end where you do 140k damage, 250k healing, and it can do a lot less than that as well too. Just depends where you're at with your tree. I pretty much use it off cooldown. It's a good ability to hit as well too. Another ability that's going to be really big in your rotation is Demon Spikes. Now, Demon Spike passively gives you 20% parry chance and reduces the physical damage you take by 37% for 6 seconds. But on top of that, I went into a spec as well too, in my talent tree, that gives me an extra 20% physical damage, and it snares the target as well too. So for me, it's part of my rotation as well too, to have some consistent pressure up on the target. Now, also as well too, I took a passive in my 4th row called Feed the Demon, and when you consume a soul fragment, which you're generating from your attacks, it also reduces the cooldown on your Demon Spike by 1 second per each one. So you can go through your cooldowns very quickly and refresh itself, which is nice. So you're able to actually have Demon Spike up quite often if you choose to go that way, which I think is good for consistent pressure. Now, one of the abilities I also spec'd into as well too is called Fellblade. Fellblade basically works as a charge and does fire damage to the target, generates pain as well too, and it can be reset by your Shear. Shear has a chance when you're spamming it as well too to reset your Fellblade, which is nice, so you have good consistent damage and good uptime as well too. You also have a leap ability, which is right there, and you go into your Metamorphosis for the animation as well too. You don't actually get the benefit of it, but what it does 87k fire damage to all enemies within 6 yards, and you launch that target. I took a spec as well too that increases the range on it by 20 yards. You can go that way if you want to, you don't have to. I just thought that that was probably the best one to go for myself, just having a little bit more uptime personally. Now, generally what you're going to do to the target with your main abilities is you're going to go up, you can charge them with Fellblade, use your Shear, and you can see that my Shear already refreshed my Fellblade, so just doing damage as well too. Get up your Demon Spike, so you get up your passive buff, and sometimes you can see I just went into Metamorphosis form. You have a chance, this is part of your artifact build, you have a chance when you consume a soul that you go into your Metamorphosis for 5 seconds, which helps you regenerate pain, and it also makes your health very tanky for the time being. Now, your artifact weapon as well too. Your artifact weapon does 160k fire damage and puts a dot on them over time that does about 120k fire damage for a few seconds afterwards. It also generates 2 lesser soul fragments as well too, and 1 additional soul fragment every 1 second, which is kind of nice. So it gives you a little bit more ramp up if you want to have some souls to use. Now, I was mentioning earlier that you can also use your soul fragments not just for healing, but you can use them for damage. I took a passive ability that you got in your talent trees called Spirit Bomb, and Spirit Bomb allows you to throw your soul fragments at a target, hitting them for 75k, and it also puts a buff on them called Frailty, and Frailty takes, when you hit the target, they take 10% of the damage that you do to that target is given to you as healing. So it's basically like Leech, it's just target specific, which is nice too. So it's another way that you can combo and spend your abilities as well too. Now with Demon Hunter, you have your CC is in a few different forms. They're called sigils. So this one is your damage sigil, and it does AoE fire damage, and it also puts a dot on the targets that are being hit by it as well too. Sigil of Silence silences the target after 1 second, so you can put that down and you see their target is silenced for 6 seconds after that. Or finally, you can use Sigil of Misery, which puts a fear on the target and disorients them, which I think is nice too. And there's different talents you can go into as well if you want to reduce the cooldowns on that. I have something in my honor talents that reduces the cooldowns by 40% on all of those. So there's a few different builds you can go with that too if you want them to be on shorter cooldowns. That is one of them that you can choose, and I think that that's pretty much a must in PvP. Go that route, obviously, so that way you can get your CC up more often. And I think Demon Hunter will do very well with another melee. I'm not sure how it's going to do with casters. I can't really get a feel for that. I think it'll do very well with classes like Warrior, Monk, maybe even Rogue to some extent. Very good melee classes. Now finally, a few other abilities that you have is you have Immolation Aura, which causes your target, yourself basically, to turn on fire and turn into this like flaming aura basically that generates pain over time. And you do instant damage to targets within 8 yards, and then you also radiate for damage for 15k damage every second afterwards. So if you're standing around people, they're going to take damage. So if I show you here, both targets are going to take damage here. You can see they're taking about 15k each per proc, which is pretty nice too. You have some pretty quick defensive cooldowns as well too. Soul Barrier is a talent I went into, which is basically a shield that you put on yourself. It also consumes the soul fragments in your area as well too to help power it up. It's something you can choose. I like the short CD on it. There's some more expensive cooldowns that have longer CDs, but I like this one because of the shorter CD. You also have Empower Wards, which reduces the magical damage taken by 30% for 6 seconds. That's a really short cooldown. It's on 20 seconds, so that's spammable as well too. So that's basically your overview for Vengeance Hunter. I kind of went into a more PvP spec build, but if you were going to play PvE, there's a lot of other talents you can choose as well too with longer cooldowns. I just went for more high uptime and PvP kind of a build. So you'll have to mess around with it a little bit, but I think that the build I went with is pretty consistent damage and pretty good uptime for PvP. Now the second spec that I went to is Havoc. And Havoc, it does quite a lot of damage. So, we'll get into your main abilities here too. So how Havoc works is you get Fury, which is similar to Pain basically. I don't know why they didn't just use one tree. It's really pretty much the same thing. It works like Rage. You have to generate it. So Demon's Bite is basically your spammable ability. You go up to the target and hit him for 50k, generates 20 to 30 Rage. Chaos Strike is an ability you use for 40 Fury that does pretty good damage, about 110k. And if you crit with it, 20 Fury that you generate is going to be restored back into your pool, which is nice. So it's nice if you crit and you be able to use it again in the immediate future and help put consistent pressure on your target. Now, a few other abilities that you get. Blade Dance. Strike all nearby enemies for 75k physical damage and increases your chance to dodge by 100% for 1 second. So, more so for the AoE cleave, but you do have a little bit of a defensive tide in there if you are dealing with melee cleaves. You also have a glaive that you can throw, and you also have this as well too as Vengeance Hunter. You have a little glaive that you can throw. There's some talents that you can spec into it if you want it to slow or have multiple charges. Metamorphosis, as Demon Hunter as Havoc. Metamorphosis basically puts you into this insane form, which stuns the targets in your area for 3 seconds. And when you are in Metamorphosis, your Chaos Strike and Blade Dance abilities are empowered, and you get 25% haste. Now, as Vengeance, that's something I forgot to cover. As Vengeance, you get 45% maximum health gain and normal health gain. So it's just a big health boost, and it also regenerates the amount of Fury that you're generating at that time. So it's helpful as well, too, for that sense. So as your Havoc Hunter, excuse me, I had to like go back and forth there. I was thinking in my head. But as your Havoc Hunter, it basically increases the effectiveness of your damaging spells and gives you a lot of haste. So it's good to use when you want to pop cooldowns pretty quickly. Your other big defensive that you have is Blur, which is on a 1-minute cooldown, and it increases your dodge chance by 50%, but it also reduces the amount of damage you take for 35% for 10 seconds. That's a pretty short cooldown, so it's nice in that sense that you have a lot of uptime, and also paired with your leech that you get as well too. It's a pretty good combination for being able to sustain yourself well enough. But I do think Demon Hunter is not the tankiest class ever, but it's nice that you do have some short cooldowns. Now, your Artifact Weapon, I think, is one of the only things we haven't gone over. Your Artifact Weapon does 280k chaos damage over 3 seconds to all nearby enemies. So it's just a huge burst damage spell. You can use this as well, too, when you're benefiting from your haste buff from Metamorphosis, or just normally as well too. Good damage. You have Fel Rush, which is your gap closer as opposed to the leap that you get from Vengeance. Fel Rush can be recharged as well too. There's multiple specs where you can get multiple charges and make it go faster as well. But I was seeing that the Fel charge for me was probably fine, just being normalized, and the 2 charges was okay with me. I ended up going with Chaos Cleave in my first row, which gave my Chaos Cleave a chance to hit the second target for 50% damage. I also went with Fel Blade again as well too, which was our charge ability that I was using as Vengeance. I thought it was very helpful for keeping uptime. And the big cooldowns that you get as Havoc, as Nemesis, and Chaos Blades. So what Nemesis does is it marks the target and you do 20% increased damage to that target. And if you kill the target, it increases the amount of damage that you do to that type of creature afterwards. So if you kill a human, you're going to do more damage to humanoids afterwards. But, I mean, for an arena purpose, you probably have already won the game after you've killed someone. But it is a nice additional buff that you get there. Chaos Blades, on the other hand, increases the damage done by 18% based on your mastery for 12 seconds. And your auto attacks turn into chaos damage, and they're increased by 200% damage. So your cooldowns are pretty damn bursty. You can get some pretty big dunks off of that, but I'll show you guys what some of the abilities look like normally here before we pop cooldowns. So you can see Demon's Bite. That's your spammable ability, and it pretty much just generates the Fury for you. Now you can spend it on Chaos Strike, which costs 40 Fury, and it does pretty good damage. You can also use it on Blade Dance, which is your AoE cleave, which is good as well too. And you have Fel Blade to rotate in there as well too if you need to generate some Fury or get back to the target. Now the nice thing about Demon Hunter is you have such high mobility with your 2 Fel Rushes. You also have Vengeance Retreat as well too. And that basically launches you backwards, and it does a little bit of damage to the targets, and it slows them for 70%. So you can combo that as well too with your double jump. It's just pretty freaking ridiculous how much mobility you have as Demon Hunter. That's their biggest strength, especially Havoc. That's your biggest strength by far. So you can see that was my artifact weapon right there, just using that, spinning the blades around me. And now I'll go ahead and pop some cooldowns so you guys can get an idea here. So this is going to be Metamorphosis, and when you Metamorphosis, you land, you stun the target, and it basically empowers our ability. So now we have Annihilation, which replaces your 40-second Chaos move, which I can't think of off the top of my head, and it just increases the amount of damage you do. And your Death Sweep is the exact same thing. It just increases the amount of damage you do on that ability. It doesn't really change the effects of it. So you're just doing more damage, and you also have 25% increased haste. So it's nice when you want to do a lot of damage, burst out pretty quickly, and it does some work. And those are for the abilities that it replaces is Chaos Strike and Blade Dance. I just couldn't remember them off the top of my head. I wasn't messing around with this guy too much. So, and then finally you have your Nemesis, which puts the 20% damage buff on the target. Good damage, good to combo that as well too. Or you can chain your CDs like one after the other. But I think that Demon Hunters are going to do best when you chain everything together and do some high burst. And you can also use it with an ability called I-Beam as well too, which is basically the big move for Demon Hunters that shoots out electricity from their eyes and just evaporates everyone in front of them. Does huge AoE damage. You just have to aim it. A lot of fun, cool ability. And then finally you have your Chaos Blades, which increases your mastery and your auto attack damage, and it puts it into chaos. So gives you some pretty good uptime, increases your damage. It's pretty much, Demon Hunters are pretty much all in DPS, and they have very high mobility, but I personally just can't get over the fact that they can just double jump around like this and then glide everywhere. Ugh, it is just... Could we have kept it in Mario? The double jump is a little bit fucking obsessive. A little bit, not obsessive, excessive. It's a little bit excessive. Oh my goodness, it gives me a nightmare of the Demon Hunters just swooping in like Batman over Gotham City, homie. Oh, that is gonna kill me. Alright guys, that's a wrap for Demon Hunters. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for all the support. I will catch you guys tomorrow, and we will be doing the last 2 of the series, which I believe is Druid and Monk. Really going down the final stretch here, man. I am worn out. The 2-a-days have been crazy, but I appreciate the support, guys. As always, I will catch you guys tomorrow. Keep it easy, guys.